Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And we'll be looking at the topic, the HR Competency Model. We have someone I refer to as a sister, a colleague, Tinuke Bosun Okusaga, and she will be our facilitator for tonight. I would quickly like to read her profile so that we can all get to appreciate her and get to know her a little. So we pay rapt attention as she engages with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, she is, as you can see from the screen, she's a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, MCIPM, and she also has the HRCI certification, okay, SPHRI. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tinuke is a management consultant with over 17 years experience. Her experience spans across financial services, management, education, and consulting. She is currently the managing consultant for People Plus Consulting, an indigenous human resource and strategy consulting firm she founded. Prior to this, okay, she was a manager in the People and Organizational Advisory practice of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria. Before joining PwC, she had hands-on experience in the HR department of Lagos Business School, where I work now. Okay, where she served for almost 9 years. I will stay longer than you, most likely, sis. She sits on the board of St. Saviour's School, Ebute Meta, do the Dream Youth Development Initiative, and any Pro Training Academy. She also serves as a mentor for women in management, business, and public service, WIMBIS. Also, she serves as a mentor with the full-time MBA students at Lagos Business School and Teach for Nigeria TFN Foundation. She's also an assessor for Enterprise Nigeria. Tinuke is a certified management trainer by the Center for Management Development, CMD. She's a certified HR practitioner by the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM. She's a senior professional in human resources, SPHRI, from the Human Resource Certification Institute, HRCI. She is also a member of the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, an association for MBAs, AMBA. She holds a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics and extension from Federal University Technology, Akure, and an executive MBA from the prestigious Lagos Business School. She's passionate about courses that promote education, especially for the underprivileged, and helping young people discover themselves and chart their professional course. Ladies and gentlemen, at last, I present to you Tinuke Bosun Okusaga. Over to you, man. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oluyemi Adeosun. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the body of knowledge and to also impact knowledge. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope that within the next 30, 40 minutes of our interaction, you will find value, and then you'll be able to utilize some of the things we share here on your HR journey. So yes, we are going to be looking at the HR competency model. And then why did I specifically choose this topic? I think it's important that HR folks, irrespective of the function or unit you manage, it's important that you have an overview, all right, of the value chain of HR, and you're able to assess yourself from time to time, against, the capability those competencies require. How well am I doing in this area? Because the goal is to make you a well-rounded HR professional. It's important you know the competencies to benchmark yourself against. All right, so what is an HR competency model? I'll go straight into definition. When we say competency model, what does it mean? Basically, it provides a framework for performance management, skill gap analysis, upskilling, and also provides a template for what the ideal HR organization will look like. All right, beyond, if we remove the HR word from competency and we say competency model itself, across all disciplines, across all functions within an organization, you need to have a competency model All right. In my experience in consulting, you find from time to time most organizations saying, you know what, we need to develop a competency framework. Come help us develop one. And organizations who don't have a competency framework, it's difficult for you to have a structured approach to performance management, structured approach to training. All right. From time to time, you also see organizations saying, you know what, we want to move some people from one level to another, or there's a merger and acquisition coming up, and then, you know, we need to find out if this current workforce, you know, can take us to where we are going. We have a new strategy, we have a new org structure we've developed in line with our business strategy. We want to be sure that the current workforce we have, you know, can take us to where we are going or can help enable us implement this strategy. And then they said, come and conduct a skill gap analysis for us, or in other words, core capability assessment. So a competency framework, you know, comes to play here. I know most of us in our performance management frameworks, most of us either use the management by objectives. Some of us do balance scorecard, but by and large, there should be an element of competency assessment also in your performance management framework. All right. So we see that in all, a competency framework is like a bedrock for every people management initiative, because I mean, aside performance management, skill gap analysis, upskilling, it also has implication for recruitment. All right. When you're recruiting, when you're hiring, you know, you're going to be asking questions based on competencies you've identified for that function. So competency framework, the competency dictionary is the bedrock, you know, for all HR activities as far as people management is concerned. All right. So that is why I think it's a critical part, you know, of the HR professional, framework. And every HR professional should understand what competencies are required for and the usefulness of competency within an organizational context. So performance management, skill gap analysis, upskilling, and also, I mean, how you're structured in your HR department. Every function, every department has their own organogram. So in HR, what's your organogram like in HR? Where does employee relations sit? Where does HR business partnering sit? You know, that competency also makes you know where to fit people and, you know, what areas, what are the key areas within an HR function. So it gives you all this background so that you can build a structure that works. Right, so as an HR professional, what are those key competencies, you know, I need to have to ensure that I succeed on the role? I'm taking a cue from an expert we've all probably at one time or the other had interactions with or read some of his publications. And if you haven't, I encourage you, you know, to do some work and go and research about Dave Ulrich. Dave Ulrich is one of the leading academic and researchers in the area of human resources, and he does a lot of consulting in this area. All right, so he has identified a framework which I think encapsulates, all right, anything we do in HR, one way or the other, is hinged into this framework by the time you analyze it and break it down. All right, and he puts it in 3 buckets. You know, your HR competency should be within 3 buckets. You should have competencies that speak to organizational capabilities. You should have competencies that speak to systems and processes, and you should have competence that speaks to relationships. All right. So if you break down your HR competencies into different criteria, you should fit into these 3 major areas. So under the organizational capability, as an HR professional, you should be a talent manager and an organizational designer. So everything that involves org design, everything within the framework of talent management, that's a key capability for you. Also within organizational capability, culture and change steward, all right? We always hear this word that culture is strategy for breakfast. If you're in HR and your organization doesn't have a healthy culture, you find out that implementing the strategy and having an effective performance management will be a challenge. So you need to understand what it means to have a healthy culture. And when there's a need to change your culture, you should also be taking the lead on that. And of course, change management. From time to time, organizations go through change. I mean, it's a VUCA world we are in. And so, you know, there will always be changes in strategy, changes in business model. HR should be at the forefront of managing this change, helping employees transit, all right, from one state to the other, all right? So that is why it is a capability you must have. And of course, strategy architect. A lot of you work in HR and you have never seen an HR strategy before. You just know, okay, me, I'm working on performance management. The other person is in training. The other one is employee relations. But you haven't seen that document that puts it all together and say, this is the HR strategy, and this is how everything we do in HR connects with the business. All right. So if you've not developed yourself in that area, that is one capability you should also look at developing. And of course, under system and processes of the operations, all right, how do we ensure that employees have seamless services? Our services are seamless. When employees require one service or the other, they're able to get it at the flick of the finger. And, to ensure that, people are not always complaining. You send mail to HR, you make requests, it doesn't come. You should have seamless HR processes, and of course, your business partnering activity. I mean, most FMCGs or bigger organizations have HR business partners mapped to functions, to key functions, all right, which is, and generally managing the operations of that department or that function. So how efficiently are you doing this? How well do you understand the business of that department you're managing or you're working as an HR business partner? And how do you deliver services to the business? It's another critical competence you need to develop. And of course, when it comes to relationships, all right, policies, processes, and putting things in place to ensure that, if we say everybody should go in direction A, we make sure everybody goes in direction A. Not that some people will go in direction B, and some will go in direction A. HR should be able to stand their feet on the ground and say, this is what the policy says. Under every circumstances, this is how we should go about this, and not, you should not be in the position where you're flip-flopping and they can't know what your mind is. You can't give direction. An HR person, you should be able to give some direction. You should be able to give some structure, to how things are done in the organization. And so that is why the credible activist, is very important, because HR is where they will always run to. This is the issue. How do we go about it? So you need to have a point of view. And if you don't have the knowledge of the business, you don't have the knowledge of your processes, or you have not put one in place, it is difficult, to maintain, to demonstrate this competency. All right, so let's look at one after the other. We'll also look at, the core functions of each of those competency areas. But there's a data I want to show to us here. It's a data that a research that was also done by Deval Rich. He did an assessment across, a few organizations, a couple of organizations within the United States to actually find, across the HR functions, all right, at what level do people operate across each of these competency areas we've talked about. And of course, we find out that the ones that scored lowest is HR strategy, culture change, talent management, business partner. Those areas are areas where you find most HR people wanting, all right? Everything around operations, employee relations, people tend to master that, very quickly. But when it comes to, what is the strategy HR is working with, you find that most HR people are at a loss because they can't link it, they can't connect it to the business. All right, our culture, what kind of culture do we have in this organization? Most of HR, can't place it, all right? So you also need to do your own assessment, assess yourself against these competency areas and score yourself, all right? What will you score yourself? Where will you place yourself across this competency area? Are you at a 50? Are you at a 60? Are you at 70? Where exactly are you, and where do you score highest and where do you score lowest? I mean, this is like a man in the mirror moment that will give you that opportunity to go back to your own drawing board and go and say what you need to do, across those areas where you have not fared well, and see how to develop those capabilities as we go along. All right, so talking about each of those competency areas, the talent manager, when you say talent management, what exactly does it entail? What an organizational designer, what are the responsibilities? What am I supposed to know? All right, the talent manager and organizational designer just ensures that, everything around talent attraction, all right, how well have you mastered the recruitment processes? How well do you do recruitment? When it's time to hire, what are the stages? What are the processes you follow? All right. How do you measure your success? All right. When it comes to talent attraction. All right. So that is one critical competency you need to master. All right. Within the talent management competency framework. And of course, beyond attracting talent, it goes to developing their capabilities. That is where your training, learning and development, and growth of the employees within the organization, that is where it comes in. All right, so how well do you fare when it comes to training? All right, how do you identify training needs, and how do you structure training in your organization? All right, and beyond training people, you train people to close gaps. You also train people to develop them. All right, so the development aspect of training, how do you go about it? Have you been able to master the dynamics, all right, within the training space, adequately? All right, all this speaks to talent management. And then, of course, all right, within that talent management capability is also the ability to ensure that as people perform, they get rewarded. All right, growth within the organization. Do you have a career management framework, all right, within your organization? Can an employee come in together and project that, okay, within the next 5 years, within the next 8 years, this is where I see myself. This is where I want to be. Is there a road path? Is there a roadmap, to ensure that is done or that happens within your organization? All this speaks to talent management, because the whole essence is, after attracting them, how do we retain them? And the retention comes with all the dynamics of training and development and giving them opportunity to grow within the organization. And of course, on the flip side is your org design. From time to time, all right, organizations go through changes, like I said earlier on. HR's responsibility is to see, how do we map positions within the organizations? How do we place position? All right, who sits where? All right, which roles links to which role? All right, so knowing how an organizational structure is designed is one of the capabilities you need to have as an HR department. I know probably most times maybe it's an outsource function, maybe get a consultant to do it, but within the HR function, it is one capability any HR person should develop. From time to time, you see a line manager coming to meet you and saying, this role has changed. So I'm adding this to this role. I'm changing this about the role. It has implication on the structure, all right? So the first thing is to ask the line manager, please bring your organizational structure. And in most organizations where you have, like the multinationals or structured organization, when they want to recruit, the first thing in the recruitment process is org structure review. This position, where does it sit in the structure? What has changed about it before we start going to advertising, sourcing, and all that? Is to go to the org structure first and see what has changed. Has anything changed? Is this still sitting where it is? If that is it, then okay, all things remain the same, nothing has changed. So that org structure is the first step, in your recruitment process. Where is this role sitting? What are the responsibilities associated to this role? Who does this role report to? Who reports to this role? All this, are fitted within the organizational structure. So it is a critical competence for an HR professional. That takes you away from just the operational HR person who just does stuff, who doesn't see the implication of all those HR activities. You're able to link hiring to the structure and see, how are we structured? How are roles placed within the organization? What level is the manager sitting? What level is senior manager? Where is the deputy manager sitting? I mean, it helps you fit all this within an organizational context. All right, number 2 is the culture and change steward. All right. Earlier on, when I was, giving a summary of what this requires, I mentioned the fact that from time to time, it's good for you to test your culture. All right. From time to time, do a culture assessment within your organization, especially if you've been getting feedback that is not pleasant, if you've been getting complaints, from employees across different soft issues. You may want to test, what kind of culture, do we have in this organization? And the best thing is to do a culture assessment, all right? You may need to engage a consultant to do this, but it's very important that you understand the basics, right? The basics when it comes to culture. All right, so there are different kinds of cultures different organizations have. So you want to define, this is our own culture. You need to sit with management and say, what culture works here? What culture works for our business? All right, and from time to time, we keep checking, have we deviated from the culture, or the culture is still the same? All right, so you need to be at the forefront of culture change. All right, if the culture is no longer working, you need to be the first one to raise it up and say, I feel based on feedback. I mean, you run your employee engagement surveys. These are some of the data that you can use to check, if your culture, is still supporting the business, is still supporting employee growth and development. All right. So you do your culture assessment and find out, oh, this is where we are now. No, this is not the culture we want. This is the culture we want, but things have changed over time. These are the things we need to put in place to ensure that we go back to where we are coming from. And your core values, those are the symbols of your culture. I mean, I know we all have it, hanging on the wall somewhere. Every organization has it beautifully neat on the wall, saying these are core values. But how is it demonstrated? All right, how is it demonstrated within the organization? If you say you have a culture of respect, integrity, teamwork, professionalism, all right, openness, all right, transparency, all those wonderful words we put together. How is it being demonstrated in the organization? And that is why some people put it as part of their performance management indicators, all right? So your performance management document, we find some organizations doing the 360. That's what 360 feedback helps you to establish, all right? So we are not only measuring your performance based on the technicalities of the role, we're also measuring the behaviors to ensure that the way you do the job, all right, aligns with our core values. All right, this is what culture is all about. How do we behave here? How do we do things around here? And your core values is one of the indicators you can use to assess if your culture is still healthy or not. And of course, change. Things will always change. Processes will change, business models will change, strategy will change. All right, how do we transit employees, all right, from the previous stage to the next stage? I know, again, this is another area where consultants make a lot of money, because when it comes to change management, a lot of things happen. You can find instances where people's roles change. You can find instances where people are asked to leave. All right, so what role does HR play when this kind of thing happens, and how should you deal with it? All right, so it's important that you understand and master, when change is coming, how to prepare your employees and how to carry them along through those different stages, largely through communication. It's all about communication, developing different mechanisms to ensure that they get information at the right time and they know the implication of every stage of the change. So the responsibility is on HR. Number 3 is strategy architect. I mean, from the data I showed earlier on, where an assessment was done across the various HR competency areas, and HR strategy was the lowest, scored lowest, within that sphere. It is important that, everything you do in HR, if you are hiring, if you're training, if you're coming up with an initiative, employee engagement initiative, you must be able to link it to the business. Because that is where this saying that HR is a spender, a cost center, when people say HR is a cost center, because most times you're not linking, all those initiatives, all those activities you're doing, you're not linking it to the bottom line. Okay, before we introduce this initiative, this was the revenue. This was the number of customers we had. By the time we brought this on board, it had impact on revenue. We now have our customer, base increased by 20% or increased by 30%, or our revenue line has grown by 30% based on this initiative. Because most times we don't draw that line. All right, we just run an assessment, or employee wants this, employee wants that, and we just feel, once employees say they want it, management should do it. But you are not speaking the language. If employee wants it, how does it add up for the business at the end of the day? All right, so your role is to ensure that everything you do, you can link it. So what is the strategy of the business? What are the priorities of the business? What does the business want to achieve? What is HR's role in making those priorities achievable? There must be a connecting line. And then when you are giving your report, you're able to show management how this initiative, if your performance management report comes out and it shows that 80% of your workforce is performing above expectation, and the business looks at it and say, our revenue is not performing above expectation. HR, how is it? Where is the gap? All right. I mean, those are the areas where you should be able to speak up and say, this is what we've done, this is what we've not done, because there must be an alignment, all right, with whatever you're doing and the business success. All right, and that is why you find some organizations during the performance management process do what you call the first ranking, because you can't say everybody is doing fine and the business is not doing fine. Then somewhere down the line, we're just joking. All right. So our performance management is not a true reflection of the business. Then we're just a checklist. All right. It doesn't have direct impact. So if everybody is doing well, it must reflect in our numbers. All right. So it's important that HR is able to draw the line. All right. And if I'm training people, all right, before training, this is where the business, this is where we were in terms of numbers. Post training, this is what we've been able to achieve. I mean, that is what management wants to hear. And that is what it means when you say you're a strategic, HR professional, because you are not just running activities, but you're speaking to the business and you're contributing, to fulfilling or ensuring the strategic goals of the organization is achieved. Number 4, your operations, which I think a lot of HR people probably do quite well, all right, in terms of, all the different HR activities, employee data management, leave management, employee benefits disbursement. But if you also don't master this very well, you're going to make the HR function a joke, because you tell those people, when you send them email, it will take them 5 days, it will take them 2 days to respond. You better go and meet them, because nobody will answer you. How have you automated your processes to be less human dependent? All right. By the click of a button, can I get to know what my benefits are? By the click of a button, at my convenience, can I download my pay slip at any time I want it? At the click of a button, do I know my leave entitlement? At the click of a button, can I know how my performance was rated, last quarter or 2 years ago? All right, how efficient are your processes? How well have you, leveraged technology to ensure that, when they think about you, they think of seamless services in your HR function. All right, so it's unfortunately we're at the age of technology, so you can't afford, no matter the size of your organization, there's always one HR technology you can leverage on. Even if you don't have money to buy the big softwares, there's always something small that you can leverage on to at least automate your process to a certain extent. So have you looked at your work processes? What are your employees saying about getting service from HR? Your service delivery, have you gotten feedback from the workforce? Is it efficient? Is it prompt? All right. Are they getting the level of satisfaction they require from it? If not, then you need to develop that competency and ensure that your service is efficient, all right? And then from time to time, a lot of organizations adopt different strategies. Some do some form of outsourcing, depending on what the area is, just to ensure that, their processes are seamless and meet the needs of the workforce, all right? So operational executor, and of course, the business ally, HR business partnering. All right, it seems it sits mostly in larger organizations, but whichever the size of the organization is, you need to ensure that, whatever you're doing, whatever department you're serving, you need to be speaking to the needs of that department in the area of their strategy. All right, if you are working with the marketing department as an HR person, what are the typical needs of the marketing function? All right, what are those tools they need to get their work done? All right, you should be championing it to ensure that they get those things, all right? You should be in the forefront of ensuring those things are delivered onto them within the shortest time possible, all right? When you're doing your KPI, setting goals for the business, it should speak to, those core business areas. Your KPIs should not be going in direction A and the business is going in direction B. There must be an alignment. The KPIs must speak to the corporate goals. It must speak to the departmental goals. All right. So it is very important for you to ensure that that link takes place. People set goals in a vacuum. All right. It's time for performance management. Okay, everybody go and set your goals and send your goals to HR. HR, you have the responsibility of sitting and dissecting those goals and say, what part of the business does this goal address? All right. So you are not just a collector, all right? That's not your job. You are the one who sit and analyze and look at the KPIs. Are they actually smart? All right? We've always talked about SMART acronym in performance management, all right? Are these goals, are they speaking to the business at all? If they are not speaking to the business, that is where you find that at the end of the year, you find a misalignment between the performance outcomes and the business outcome. So you need to ensure that this doesn't happen. You need to understand the context under which the business operates, the business environment, all right? What is working in the business environment, what is not working, how do we cushion the effect, all right, of what's going on within the business environment at the moment to ensure that employees are still able to deliver, to the optimum in terms of getting their job done, all right? So understanding every part of the business. So what do they do in engineering? You need to know what they do in their operations, what is their strategy, marketing, what are they doing there? What is their strategy, research, finance, what are their goals? What are they doing there? I mean, that is why you have a question on the screen. Can I, all right, I put myself also in that bracket and every other person on this call, get a job in another department within my company? Can I use what I know now to move my career either into sales, marketing, client service, and so on? If the answer is yes, then I'm a business ally. All right. So how well do I understand the business? If I understand the business enough and I know I want to make a career switch today, and I send him my application and they interview me, and say, wow, though this person is in HR, has a strong understanding of the business. He knows what the numbers are as far as finance is concerned. He knows what the production level is as far as operations is concerned. Wow, that is what is called a business ally. Not somebody that just sit down and your own is just policy and processes. No, this is not the policy. This is not the process. You are not even looking at the impact of that thing on the business. You don't even understand the dynamics of the business because policies and processes are supposed to enable the business, all right? So at any point in time where your policies and processes are enabling, you're supposed to sit back, and engage and say, how do we tweak this? How do we make it work to ensure that the business achieves its goals and its strategy? And of course, number 6, which is the last one, credible activists. I mean, there will always be issues where HR says this is how it should be done, and for whatever reason, somebody else thinks, you know what, no, I want to do it anyhow. I want to do it how I want. You need to have that credibility and be able to stand to your feet and say, this is what it is. This is how it should be done, giving that sense of direction and standing true to it. I mean, there's something here that says you should be willing to take a stand of position on important issues, even at the risk of becoming unpopular. I've seen people resign their jobs because somebody wanted them to do something, which is not supported by the organizational policies. All right. I mean, just to satisfy somebody's ambition. And, even though the person is highly placed in the organization and the person stands up and says, sorry, I'm unable to go ahead with this. I rather refer you to so other person who can help or assist, but this is beyond the scope of my work, all right? Those are the kind of people we are looking for in HR. Not people that will dance to the tune of anybody that comes. So this line manager said, is he a manager? Okay, just do what you want. So me, I don't want to allow. You need to be able to defend, the organization. When you have policies and processes, not your own. I mean, in developing policies, there's a process you follow now. I mean, when you come up with the business need, you develop a policy around, and it goes through approval process. So if the organization does not believe in it, if they don't think it can support them, help them achieve their goal, then they wouldn't have approved it. So when somebody else wants to do something outside that, then you should be able to stand up and say, this is how it works, and be able to defend the organization and not thinking of my job. I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to. Credible activist means standing tall, even when the tides are against you, because you know that this is the right thing to do, and this is the right way to follow, and this is in the interest of the organization and the business. All right, so those are the 6 major ones. I think everything you need to do within the HR context fall under these 6 models. And, to give it a little bit of robustness. GE, I'm sure a lot of us have read about General Electric. And General Electric is one of the organizations that had the most fantastic talent management strategies, over time. And I think, they also brought a different version, not entirely different, but some robustness, to the conversation on what the model HR people should have. They added, the generic and soft skills that is also required. Because, like I said, when you're carrying out your task, it's not just the what, but the how, all right? The what is the KPIs, the how are the behaviors, all right? So there are behaviors that underline, each of these activities you carry out in HR. As the HR business partner, One of the key skills you need to have on your shelf is business acumen, which I talked about, understanding the dynamics of the business, your customer focus, listening to your customers. From time to time, that is why you run your employee engagement model, just to ensure that you are in tune, all right, to feel the pulse of the workforce, all right. External relations, what is happening outside the business environment? Our competitors, what are they doing? From time to time, you see organizations doing, salary benchmark, compensation benchmark. Why are they doing this? Because they need to know, what is happening, amongst our competitors. Are we lagging? Are we behind? All right. Are we in the forefront? Are we in the middle? What is our pay philosophy, our compensation philosophy? Are we still true to it, or they've thrown us out of the market? All right. So external relations, you need to feel the pulse, know what is going on within the context of the business or what your competitors are doing. And of course, global mindset, all right, within the global system, what is changing in the industry we are in terms of people management, in terms of HR operations? Are there new things we should be looking at? Are there new processes we should be introducing? All right, these are the skills that you should underline your role within the business partnering framework. And of course, when it comes to your HR operations, what are the things? What are those generic and soft skills, or that you need to harm yourself with? Ability to communicate. HR is a communicator. You can't be in HR and not be communicating. Expecting the employees to know. No. If it takes saying it 10 times, you have to keep saying it. In my experience consulting around change management, when we are doing change management engagement for a client, we tell them that, we have to develop a communication plan. And within that communication plan, we are going to explore every avenue. We are going to do screensavers. We are going to do email. We are going to do newsletter. We are going to do focus group, because you can't assume that because you sent an email, they've seen it. I've seen most times HR people, I have sent the person email. I've sent the person email. Why don't you engage? If you don't get a response to the email, why don't you engage and find out what's going on? All right. So you can't communicate enough. As an HR person, that is one critical skill, you need to have. And of course, consulting and coaching. You need to understand, you need to engage the line managers. What are you facing? What are the issues with people management? All right. What is working as far as your people management is concerned? What is not working? That is consulting. You need to consult them from time to time. Line manager roundtable, a period where you bring all your line managers together and say, I want to hear from you. All right, because it's one thing to hear from the workforce, but what are the line managers feeling? Because those are the people that reflect the entire DNA of the organization. They say people don't leave companies; they leave their managers. If your line manager's head is not straight, there's a problem. All right, so you need to consult and engage them from time to time to know what's going on. Your employee relations, your policies, processes, how is discipline done, how is grievance dealt with within the organization, they need to be well spelled out, all right? So that when issues come up, people know the consequences, to every action they carry out within the organization. Staffing and development, as your recruitment, training, in cases of mergers and acquisition, in case we are buying a new business or we are merging with a new business, what am I supposed to do? Talked about change management. What is your role as HR? People are going to be laid off. What is your role as HR? How do you handle this? All right, you need to understand what goes on within that space. Negotiation and conflict resolution. From time to time, there'll be issues. So do you have policies that help you deal with all this? Or as it comes, you deal with it from your head? No, because you want to have standards so that irrespective of who, you can apply the same standard across board. Your HR technology is the age of technology. You can't have to have manual processes that breed in efficiency. You need to be able to time activities, time your responses, and ensure people get service when it comes to your HR function. And of course, your performance management and reward system, how do we run our performance management? Is it quarterly? Is it biannually? Is it annually? Our reporting structure, at what point do we report to management? How do we reward good performance? All right, is it only promotion, or do we do salary review, or do we have intrinsic and extrinsic reward system, whereby it's not just only monetary, we have all that means, of rewarding good performance outside money? What are different mechanisms we have put in place to ensure this is done? And of course, the business, your values, personal attributes, the core values, the behavior, the culture of the organization, setting of judgment, being bold, being courageous, right? I talked about it, other credible activities, being courageous, being able to make judgment, all right? You can't be flip-floppy when it's time to make decisions. You need to understand all your policies, all right? You need to understand all your processes, all right? You shouldn't be the one they will ask and say, okay, let me get back to you, let me check. You should have it on the top of your head. So at every point in time, you're able to answer decisively and make accurate judgments. Of course, I talked about, being an employee advocate, all right, and ensuring that employees' voices are heard, all right, putting mechanism in place to ensure that from time to time you get feedback from the workforce, and of course, manage relationships, being a change champion within the organization, and ensure that generally there's organizational effectiveness, across board. Of course, corporate citizenship, you are the number one citizen of the organization. HR are role models. All right. So HR should not be the one that they will be finding, going against the company policies. HR should not be the one that will be misbehaving because you are a corporate citizen. If they are looking for good behavior, if they are looking for a role model, they should be pointing to people in HR. So you need to be conscious of this. HR should not be the one coming late if lateness is not allowed in the organization. All right. So what are the behaviors the organization upholds? HR should be in the forefront, and these are the attributes you should have as an HR professional. All right, so I think that brings me to the end of my conversation, and I leave you with these thoughts. It is no longer, do you know it's no longer enough to specialize in one single functional HR competency? Yes, I know we have, specialists, all right? HR professionals need to become a generalist across the core HR competencies and a specialist in at least one functional competency, all right? You need to know what goes on across. If you're in an organization where you are mapped to competencies or you're a performance management specialist, if you don't have a job rotation plan in place where you can move, you need to help yourself, all right? Because at the end of the day, for your career progression, you won't do yourself service if you're just manning a function, except you don't have management in view. You don't have, in terms of your career prospect, you don't want to be at the management level. If you want to aspire to management level, you need to ensure that, there's a job rotation plan in place that, after you've done this for 2 years, you move to the next desk. If that doesn't exist, then you need to create your own career path and help yourself grow. Right, so it's been a pleasure listening, having this conversation. I hope you've learned one or two things. I'll yield the mic to Oriyemi Adeosun from here.
Thank you so much for that highly enlightening, insightful session. This has been very, very beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we roll. If you have questions, you have comments for our facilitator for tonight, especially around the subject matter, this is a good window. Ladies and gentlemen, all you need to do, raise your hands. We will grant you access to unmute and ask your questions. Also, if you have contributions, comments, you want to share from your experience, or one or two insights around this subject matter, this is a very good time. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see quite a number of people, Tinuke, showering encomiums, expressing their depth of gratitude to you on the insights you have shared with us so far. Ibrahim says, thank you so much for this session. I can see Oluwafe Shetan clapping. Okay, I can also see Aderoke Oluwa saying thank you. Odukwe says, I really enjoyed this session, really concise and insightful, hitting every nail on the head. I've really learned a lot. Thank you so much, ma'am. Finally, I get a question for you, and it is from Ifeanyi. And she says here, please, is HR competency model the same as competency mapping? Is HR competency model the same as competency mapping?
All right, thank you for the question. So the model gives the broad framework. When it's time to map, that means you need to break it down to proficiency levels. All right, so for example, performance management, all right, for you to be able to function in HR, maybe one of the competencies is, managing performance management. When you now want to map it, you now break it down to proficiency level. So you have basic, you have intermediate, you have expert, you have mastery. All right, so within the organization, you now sit down and say, you know what, for you to be at basic, these are the things you need to know. We define it. So that is why most times people outsource it to consultants to develop their competency framework, because that mapping phase requires a lot of consultation and a lot of work. So at basic level, we should be able to, for example, be able to design the performance management model, okay, at basic level. Or you should be able to, you know, you should be able to collate, the outcomes of the performance management exercise. That is your own role at basic level. Each organization will define what basic is to them. Then we move to intermediate. For you to be an intermediate, to say, okay, this person is at level 2 in performance management, you should be able to define KPIs. You should be able to draw up KPIs, all right? So it graduates like that. So that is the mapping process. And then across the organization, they will say, okay, if you are a junior officer, you should be at level 1, which is basic. If you are a senior officer, you should be at level 2, which is intermediate. A manager, you should be at, expert, and so on and so forth. So that's the mapping process. So that requires a little bit more work, sitting down and defining it within the organizational context.
Thank you so much. I have another question here, and the question is that you spoke around strategy, how, for example, in research identified strategy as a key gap or as one of the underdeveloped areas. She said, the question is, as an entry level or junior person in HR, how are you able, one, to develop strategic capabilities, especially when the seniors typically will want to just pass to you instruction and assignments? How do you develop strategic capabilities as a junior HR practitioner?
All right, thank you for that question. Very on point. Let me take you back to, consulting experience also. I remember whenever an organization tells us that, we want to do what you call, we want to prepare people for leadership, all right? And so in preparing for them for leadership, we want to do an assessment, to know people who are eligible to step into leadership within, a certain workforce. So come and help us assess. One key skill we assess for is curiosity. There's a software that we use, and one of the things it assesses is curiosity. If you're a junior HR officer at that organization, and all you get is instruction, and you have not at any point walked up to your manager to ask, do we have an HR strategy? I like to know, because I know all these things are somehow linked into a strategy. Do you mind sharing it with me? By the time you ask that question, if they don't have it, you get them thinking. All right. So you may get a response of no, we don't have, or yes, we have. And if it is a yes, we have, do you mind sharing with me? I'd like to go through it and understand, what goes on, as far as each of the HR responsibilities or competencies is concerned. So curiosity, you need to ask, all right, so that you can map all those things you're doing, all those papers you're carrying about, you can link it to something, all right, and see the big picture, because your ability to see the big picture helps you to go and develop. All right. So if you find yourself in that category, go and ask. Mr. Luyemi, are you there? I hope his network isn't very bad.
His network.
Okay, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay. So are you through with your response to that particular question?
I don't know at what point you stopped hearing me. I can't hear a word. It's breaking. Are you still there?
Even up the chat right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Can you hear me? Okay, it's Dr. Adeosun's network. All right. Okay.
Yeah, but the rest of us can hear you clearly.
Okay, I can see that. So I guess you heard the response to the last question.
Yes, we did.
All right. I don't know if there's any other question.
Hello, ma.
Hello.
Yeah, it's my network that is fluctuating.
Okay, all right. I guess
Yeah.
that's.
So do you have any more questions or comments, or we can call it a wrap?
Thank you for all the encomiums. I've been seeing them. There's been raining. All the thank yous. This is insightful. Thank you so much. Somebody said, thank you, TBO, meeting you once again after the last training on HR analytics and metrics in 2021. Oh, nice meeting you, Walio. Nice meeting you again. How can I keep learning and be in touch as I've not fully transitioned into HR? Maintain a network of HR professionals. That's the easiest way. I was talking to a modular MBA student of LBS yesterday on career transition. And then, part of what we discussed was, there's a 70-30 strategy to career transition in career development. And what does this mean? It means 70% of the jobs you will get will come from your network. 30% are those blind applications. All right. So anything you want to develop yourself in, just look for the network those people are and plug yourself in. All right. You see their posts, you see their discussions, engaging in all those activities build your capability. So look for the plug of the network or the key area, the discipline you want to develop yourself in, and attach yourself to that group. And then you can see how you transition and then develop from there.
Okay, Tinuke, please, if you don't mind, if you can drop your contacts in the chat group. People are asking if they want to reach out to you or your organization for consultancy. Perhaps let me also give you the opportunity, maybe briefly. I know you may not be prepared for this. What does your organization do? What kind of service do you render? What can HR practitioners who are in-house, how can they partner with your organization to get better results?
All right. Thank you very much for the sales pitch opportunity. All right. So everything within the HR, function, I consult across the HR spectrum. All right. So if you're looking at, we just talked about competency model development, competency framework across the organization. That is one area. Capability assessment from time to time. Organizations require, they want to know, do we have the workforce that can take us to where we are going? We want to know at what level our employees are. So we use that competency framework to assess the employees and to show the people that are level 2, level 1. It gives, people use it also for training, to help them know who to train and how to train. I also do a lot of work around talent acquisition. I also do a lot of work around change management, helping you, develop the right culture change also. And of course, helping you to craft your policies and processes to ensure that you have standard approach to dealing with people management issues. All right, so that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Tinuke. Please, I encourage people. Some people think.
I've dropped my LinkedIn.
Yes, some people. Yes, our LinkedIn is on the, what do you call it now? The Zoom chat. And in case you want to reach out to her too, maybe you forget and you remember me, call me. I will share our contact with you. I tell people, please don't assume that maybe you're an SME, a consultant may not be affordable or something because of the quality they do. At least engage with her first. She may be able to, depending on the kind of service and the time required, she may be able to give you a discount of some sort. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the about 70 people who joined this session tonight.
Please, can I answer Oluwafe Isheto?
Please, by all means.
How do I identify my key strength in HR competence? I'm currently a recruitment associate in a consulting firm. I really want something else, but do not know the positions I should apply for. All right, so what's your career goal? Have you sat down to craft your career goal? What do you want? It starts with you answering that question very honestly. Okay, you need to help yourself for people to help you. So what do you want? That nobody can answer that question for you. If you want a career in HR and currently you're in recruitment, how long have you been in recruitment? Have you mastered recruitment? All right, inside out, do you know how recruitment is done? If you think you've developed that capability in recruitment, then have conversation. If within your organization there's an opportunity for other HR areas, have conversation and say, can you move me to performance management desk? Or can you move me to employee relations desk? Or can you move me to the training desk? So you have that conversation if that capability exists within that organization. All right. And if it doesn't exist, then you can start looking out and see, where I can fit in based on what I have. I mean, what I always tell people, I'll go back to my conversation with the modular MBA students yesterday. When it comes to making a change or career switch, iterate, don't jump. What does that mean? It means that before you think of going out, look inside first. All right. So within that organization, can I get that opportunity? Have those conversations. If it doesn't exist, then you can look out. All right. So you've done recruitment. If you know you've mastered recruitment, then maybe it's time to do something different. Then find out from the organization. I mean, if it's still HR, choose any aspect of HR. We've just gone through the HR competency model. Choose one of the models you want to develop and then have that conversation and take it up from there. I hope that answers your question, Peisheto.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm just checking if there's any more question. All I see is appreciation. All I see is accolades and encomiums. Well deserved. Absolutely, this is the best one I've spent today. Great listening to you. You'll come back. It's just a matter of when and how we know how to chase each other. Ladies and gentlemen, I also celebrate everybody, especially the men that joined tonight. I know it's not easy to leave football to come and join a webinar, but that's their life. This is our life. So we have to put our eyes on the
there's
goal.
a football going on.
It has ended, I think. England played, is it one
the
other country
Europa
like that?
something?
Yes. And I tell people, we shouldn't be more vested in other people's career and destiny than our own.
Yes, sir.
That's it. But it's okay. Some people say they must have fun, but it's okay. This is our own fun. Anyway. All right. I think we should close one way or the other. Tinuke, I can't thank you enough. I do not take this for granted. And on behalf of everyone who joined tonight and the several hundreds of thousands who watch on YouTube, I'd like to say thank you. I'd like to say that God bless you and keep doing what you do best. Good night. Bye.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we'll bring her again.
Bye-bye.
You can mute to say good thank you to her if you want.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you
Very much.
Appreciated.
And I learned a lot.
Easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Best presentation I've ever listened to. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you.